at page 394.
394.
Right, so everyone knows Yisro, basically, the Parashat Yitro has the Big Ten, right? The top 10. Before we get to the 10 Commandments, I want to talk a little bit about the beginning of the Parashat, which sometimes gets a little bit unnoticed. Vayishra Yisro Kohen Midyan Chosei Moshe Kol Oshel Kim LaMoshe. And Yisro heard all that had transpired to the Jewish people, that what God had performed for the Jewish people, that Hashem had taken the Jews out of Egypt, etc. Okay, so Yisro heard all this stuff. We're going to come back to this later on. But right now, Rashi says, what exactly are we talking about? What did he hear? So Rashi says, the first Rashi, famous Rashi, Ma Shmua Shamu Ba. What did he hear that he decided to, join or get curious enough to try to join the Jewish people? So it says, Kriyas Yamsuf U'Melchamas Amalek. That he heard of two major events, splitting of the sea and the battle of Amalek. And those two things moved him to want to find out more about the Jewish people. So, obviously the Kriyas Yamsuf, the splitting the sea, is a pretty impressive feat that got a lot of press all over the world. Whether you're left wing or right wing, you had to report that because it happened to everybody. So everyone saw that happen. Couldn't deny that. But the Battle of Amalek seems almost to be secondary, or certainly less in stature. The splitting the sea would seem to do the trick by itself. What exactly was this Battle of Amalek that so piqued Yisro's interest? I mean, the fact that we got beat up, why would you join a people that, you're going to get beat up? Why would that be reason to join the Jewish people? So, first of all, it's interesting that Yisro was not the only person that heard about this, right? Shema Ami Yigazin, we say in Yashir, many nations heard about these great events, but not many showed up. So as far as we know, just Yisro showed up. So Rashi points out, Mashmu Shama Uba. The greatness wasn't the fact that Yisro heard, but that he came after he heard as well. And one could even say Vayishma means not that he heard, because everybody heard, but that he listened. He internalized the lesson. Often, we don't take time to internalize lessons, and Yisro did. It's interesting, and this is kind of a side point from last week, but it was a fascinating story. I think we talked about this last week about why there are gaps in the Yashir. We talked about that, right? We said that sometimes even in music, there are gaps that are already part of the music. So I want to add a different way of looking at the same idea. It was a great rabbi, Moshe Shapiro, who just passed away sometime this year. I think this year, yeah. And he was a very special man. He was a very deep thinker. And his classes were extremely, obviously very intellectual, thought-provoking, and really inspiring. It was just really stimulating. Anyway, somebody would tape his lectures and then disseminate them when he gave permission, whatever the case is. So somebody once came and said, with a novel idea, they decided that, because he spoke for about an hour, but when you speak, there are pauses, there are times there are breaks. So when he taped it, after he taped it, he cut out of the speech all the pauses and all the the breaks, and he knocked it down to, instead of an hour, maybe closer to 15 minutes, whatever the case is. And he said he was very proud of himself that people have X amount of attention span, so he thought it was a pretty nifty thing to do. If you're objective, he said, you don't understand. The pauses are part of my lecture. Mm-hmm. When I stop for a moment, I'm just thinking, and I want you to stop and internalize that lesson too. We just see this as just empty spaces, but he says, no, my pauses are there for a reason. It's time to think, right? Yisro heard, he paused, he listened, and then he came because of that. The others did not listen, and they did not come. But again, what was it about Amalek that so intrigued? Why would that be encouraging? That would be discouraging, if anything. And so one of the very simple answers is that what intrigued him was the obsession. Like, why would Amalek want to attack this ragtag nation just coming out of Egypt? A slave nation, not really posing a threat to Amalek at all. Why was Amalek seek to annihilate them? I think I once told you the story about a fellow by the name of Usher Wade. I don't know if I did it again. Usher Wade, I don't know what his name was originally, but I think he was a Baptist minister. He was certainly the son of a Baptist minister. He got married. He was not Jewish. His wife was not Jewish. And they were doing a PhD, I think, on the Holocaust study. And so part of their research led them to go to Germany for a while and kind of really investigate, firsthand. And the more they investigated, the more they asked questions, and why the Vatican was so, not complicitly silent, and all the different, they couldn't get satisfactory answers. It just made no sense why everybody went along with this. They weren't a threat. It just made no sense. The more that he studied it, the more intrigued he was. What's with the Jewish people? Why is, and that's when he began to study the Jewish people. He became so enthralled about the Jewish people that he actually and his wife converted, and he became Rabbi Usher Wade later on. He emigrated to Israel and was a rabbi in Israel. But that's really what happened in Israel as well. The intrigue was, why? Why is everybody obsessed with this little nation? And we even today we talk about, right? This goes back years ago in the 70s. Somebody I know was very close to some when the Russians started making their immigration, leaving when they were able to get out the first time out of Russia. So one of the Russians had this really strange experience when he looked to see. I guess he had never seen a map. When he looked to see Israel on a map, he first focused on Canada. He assumed it's got to be this big country that buddies with America. It must be Canada, right? When they shouted, no, it's that little dot, and you can't even put the letters Israel on that. It doesn't fit. He like his mouth, his jaw dropped. It makes no sense. This is what everybody's consuming, and it doesn't make sense. And that's what intrigued Yisro. What is it about the Jewish people? What is it about them that And that's what really pulled him in. So it was both. It was the might of God, splitting the sea, and also why the obsession with the Jews? What's with the Jews? That also intrigued him as well. So Yisro comes and he joins the Jewish people after Yisro heard all about what the Jewish people had to say, all that happened rather to the Jewish people. And it tells us that Yisro came with Moshe's wife. Now, according to many commentaries, this particular story took place after the Sinai revelation. We know there's a rule called Ein Muktam U'Mucha B'Torah. It shouldn't disturb us that sometimes the Torah is not written in chronological order, and that's because the Torah is not meant to be a history book per se. And so this story, actually, according to many commentators, actually took place after the Torah was given. Why it was written earlier? No, it's even if we are willing to understand and accept that sometimes things are written out of order. There's a reason for it. It's not random. So I'd like to share with you perhaps why it was written in this fashion, in this order. But it's interesting, if we truly understand this took place after the Torah was given, that means Zipporah, Moshe's wife, his two sons, never made it to Har Sinai. They, of all people, Moshe here, the lawgiver, doing this for the entire nation, his wife, his children were not present at the sign of revelation. It's amazing. And one explanation is because they didn't go through the exile process themselves. They were tucked away in Midian all these years. And really, redemption is really a process that comes through exile. If they couldn't go through the exile piece, if they didn't go through that separate piece, they would not really appreciate Torah or earn the Torah in the same way that the others had. So it's interesting that they themselves never had that private, or that rather public, sign of revelation like everybody else. But okay.
But neither did Yitro.
It needs to be there. Correct. According to this, exactly. So now let's try to figure out exactly why this was written before, if it took place after. So in just a few moments, Yisro is going to turn, and he's going to observe Moshe as Moshe judges the people, and he's going to see that there are lines out the door, like the DMV, like just lines out the door. No one's going anywhere. It's like horrendous. And so Yisro says, this makes no sense. Why don't you delegate? This makes no sense. You take the top cases, you take the Dover Gadol, you take the big cases, and the small cases hand out. This is just absurd. And then Moshe says, not bad, good idea, and he accepts. And the obvious question is, Moshe was no dummy, obviously, right? Moshe could have figured this out on his own. He understood that he could have delegated. What was it that Yisro saw that Moshe didn't see? So it works on two levels. It's who Moshe was and who Yisro was. Yisro was had a critical eye for everything. The reason why he came to Judaism was because he had this critical eye for all other religions. He was able to kind of, see that which was inappropriate, and he had that critical eye. So he had that critical eye over here as well. Whereas Moshe, on the other hand, for Moshe, the idea of waiting all day to meet the people, and the Jewish people standing in line to meet Moshe, it was a no-brainer. Neither of them wanted to give up the opportunity to have a personal communication. Moshe's love for the people and the Jewish people's love for Moshe was they were willing to forgo and wait online forever because the opportunity to speak to Moshe directly. We say something called Ava Mekalkal Shura. That love sometimes distorts straight logic. And their love for each other, they didn't see that straight logic. that Yisro presented with that critical eye, and then once presented with that straight logic, Moshe, you guys are waiting online for 19 hours, you're 20 hours in a row, and people waiting. Right? When he heard that, something that, the love kind of blinded him, love is blind in a sense, so then that's when he first opened up to that suggestion, because he felt really at the end of the day, maybe the flip side of it has merit as well. Okay. But that's one suggestion, certainly. It's interesting, by the way, that Moshe didn't necessarily agree with everything Yisro said. Because Yisro, if you pay attention to the words, Yisro says, you take davar gadol, you take the big cases, like, if there's a dispute about $100,000, you take it. The davar cut in the small cases, like small claims court, why bother with that? And Moshe doesn't say that. Moshe says, no. Moshe says, I'll take the davar kasha. I'll take the more complex cases. But Moshe says there's no distinction in Jewish law whether he stole $10,000 or $10. Stealing is stealing. Moshe says, I'm not going to assign, based on the monetary amount, what's more of a valuable or important use of my time. Stealing is stealing. That has to be rectified, whether it's 10 or 10,000. Davar kasha, I grant you that maybe more complex cases, and for that, he agreed. There's a very clever shot by the Netziv, and I say clever because you see in a second, it's interesting that Yisro approached Moshe with the following idea. That we know in Judaism there's something called arbitration, called a pshara. Pshara means arbitration, essentially. And both parties have to agree to arbitration if they don't want to go to a din Torah. In din Torah, there's usually a winner and a loser. In a din Torah, you're right or you're wrong. In a pshara, the judge can kind of try to find some middle ground, not based on the exact law, but he doesn't have to, because both parties agree to whatever he wants to do, and he will try likely to find some sort of common ground where both walk away, not winners, but not walk away losers as well. And sometimes for shalom, for peace, that might be an important way. So people can opt, or they can say, no, I insist on din Torah. I want whatever the rule is. If I'm right, I want to win. If I'm wrong, I want to lose. All right? Well, let's finish this thought, and I'll take the question in a second. Let me just finish the thought. Give me a second. So, what did it sit? Now, the rule is, however, you cannot offer pshara if, when the case is presented to you, in your mind, you have a very clear picture of who's right and wrong. Notice, if you know what the din is, if you know what the rule is immediately, you can't offer pshara. Pshara can only be offered if you haven't yet investigated, and you know what the halacha would be. So you're allowed to say, I'm not going to look through halacha, but if it's very clear to you what the halacha is, you can't offer pshara. So this is what Yisro said. Yisro, here's a problem here. If everyone goes to you, your clarity is so perfect that you can never offer pshara. And if you can never offer pshara, so people never walk in compromise. Let's delegate so there are others who are less clear than you, so to speak, and they can offer the opportunity of pshara as well. That's how the Tziv wants to kind of learn that it was trying to create a system where they would allow for arbitration and pshara as opposed to right or wrong. That was another idea. But I want to share with you a final pshat, but you had a question first. Yes.
No, the question is just that how many people realize that what you're reading here is the genesis of the legal system
Yes.
of the civil world, the civilized
Correct.
world.
That's absolutely correct.
The system of courts, the Supreme Court, and which Moshe was
Yes.
like the Supreme Court.
Yes, absolutely.
But how many people realize it comes out of here?
Absolutely. Absolutely right. Absolutely right. And of course there's all sorts of criteria to meet to become a judge. And I think it says over here, actually, you have to be is it over here? Well, let's see. Okay, so that's the second idea. Yeah, it says you have to be Anshe Emes in verse 21 on page 398. You have to be Anshe Emes, people of truth, and Sonei Betza. You have to be people that hate bribes. That be somebody who really detests, who despise money. Despise money. Sonei Betza, they despise. You have to, right? Because somebody who loves money, he's going to be bribed easily. So he once asked the Kutzke Rebbe, who was a famous Hasidic Rebbe, he said some witticism that sounded like jokes, but there was a tremendous element of truth to it. They once asked him, how in the world can you really find people that hate money? So he said, yeah, for money you can find anybody. Right? So, anyway, but the bottom line is like this. There's a third idea, there's a third understanding of what's going on over here. And that is the following. Yisro offers this novel idea of delegation. But it wasn't so novel. And Moshe Rabbeinu, actually, according to the Barbanel, I think it was the Barbanel, had fully intended to implement such a scaled system, a judicial system as well. He was waiting till all the Torah was taught a little more clearly, and then he can hand out these court systems to the different judges. But when Yisro came ahead and suggested it, Moshe Rabbeinu feigned, oh, what a great idea. You know, somebody, what do they say about, what do they say that if you tell a Frenchman a joke, so he laughs once because he gets a joke. You tell an Englishman a joke, he laughs twice. Once when he hears a joke, and once when he actually gets it and laughs at the joke, right? And then you tell a Jew a joke, he never laughs, but he just tells you two things. First of all, he heard the joke already, and second of all, you're telling it wrong, right? That's what we do, right? That's what we do. So that's but that's something we're very tempted to do, which is whether somebody wants to share with you a story or a joke or Dvar Torah, they're halfway through, if you heard it, I heard that one already. And because you want to show that you know it, but at the time you're showing a lack of sensitivity because that person would feel like a contributor, and now you're robbing him of his thunder and his opportunity to feel like a contributor. And so Moshe pretended, said, even though he had that idea in mind, actually himself, but he didn't say anything because once he was suggesting what the Yisro feel great about, why not? Why shouldn't Yisro feel good about it? And that's why this Torah portion, even though it happened afterwards, is written before. Why? Because this is a lesson in Derech Eretz. In Derech Eretz, Kadma LaTorah. We know the rule is that you have to develop your etiquette and character and midos before you study Torah. So if this is an ultimate lesson in Derech Eretz, therefore the Torah writes the story prior to the Torah giving because of this beautiful lesson of Derech Eretz Kadma LaTorah. It might also be, interestingly enough, that, just 1 second, this Torah portion is called Yisro, which is interesting because the main event is the Ten Commandments. It's not about Yisro. This parsha is not about Yisro. Yet it's called Yisro. The word Yisro comes from Yeser, which means extra. And because, in fact, this the Torah portion that we start with is totally extra. Because had Yisro not said anything, it would have happened anyway. So Yisro means Yeser. It's alluding to the fact that this first portion of this week's Torah portion is really unnecessarily written because most would have done it anyway. But to teach us this incredible lesson of Derech Eretz, it's written anyway. So it's called Yisro to allude to that idea. It's written before, even though it happened afterwards, because Derech has Kadma Torah, and Moshe Rabbeinu, even though he had known about it himself, was allowing Yisro to feel like a contributor to the Jewish people because that's what he wanted to be. Yisro wanted to be a contributor, and Moshe Rabbeinu wisely is able to do that. But people sometimes they can't help themselves. The Chazon Ish once said, a lot of people know how to talk. I know how to remain silent. There's a gift and a strength to how to remain silent as well. So you have to learn how to remain silent. And that's what Moshe Rabbeinu did, so that Yisro could feel like a contributor. Yeah, you had a question, yeah.
Yitro, wasn't he worried that people might think if Moshe is the only judge that he might, in the eye of the beholder, that Moshe could have been wrong, and there was supposed to be another level,
A system of checks and balances, so to speak.
to review his judgment, and that's why he said we need to have these other levels. This guy will go from the
I've never seen that, but I could see that somebody like a Yisro, again, an outside point of view, with this, with the critical eye we talked about, maybe having that idea. Certainly possible. Yes.
Rabbi Foreman had a fascinating insight with Yitro. Yitro heard all the things that God had done for Bnei Yisrael, and that's why he came. Then he talked to Moshe. Moshe told him from his point of view, and Yitro was just blown away. That so much so that he gave a feast and declared that this is the most wonderful thing. What was it that he heard? What he hadn't heard away, but what Moshe told him was that God did all these things for Bnei Yisrael. Here was a God who took personal interest in every Jew, something that was a totally foreign concept for all the people and all the other concepts of God before.
That's a good point, very good point. I want to add something else actually, what you're referring to. If you take a look, it says in verse 8, that's the last word on page 394, Vayisaper, and Moshe told, turn the page, Moshe lechosno, es kol asher asa Hashem lepa'al mitzrayim. Al Odos Yisrael. That's you emphasize the word Al Odos Yisrael. That he told his father everything that Hashem done to power in Egypt for Israel's sake. So you're emphasizing the idea that what he emphasized was for Israel's sake. That's a nice idea. Rashi doesn't really necessarily say that. Rashi just says Rashi says, "Yisaper Moshe lechosan." What's really bothering Rashi is the question that really you're raising, which is the first pasuk. It tells us that Yisro heard everything that happened to the Jews that Hashem did to Moshe, right? And for Bnei Yisrael, it says, and he heard everything that Hashem did for Moshe and for Klal Yisrael, right? So, what's Moshe telling him now as Kol Asher Asa that Yishmael didn't hear yet? So Rashi, look what Rashi says. Rashi says, to draw his heart near, to bring closer to Torah. It's an incredible thing. What he's saying is, a diamond. You can look at a diamond, and the first time you look at a diamond, you look at it and you say, wow, it's a pretty dazzling diamond. You can look at it a second time and see from a whole different perspective the diamond. And you look at it a third time, see, right? There's so many facets to the diamond that every time you look at it, you can have a different appreciation for it. Torah certainly is the same way. In other words, the fact that Yisro heard everything that happened to Jews, that's what he looked at it once with a diamond. When Moshe Rabbeinu said it over a second time, you know, when you see it a second time, we learn something the second time and the third time. Every single time, the same words, somehow you see it a little bit differently, you hear it a little bit differently, it impacts a little bit differently. So even if Moshe repeated the exact same thing that Yisro already heard, but Rashi says, it accomplished limshech libay lekar Torah. It still drew him closer to Torah, because we could see the same thing again and again, and every single time, like that diamond, we see Torah. Every time we see it, we hear it just a little bit nuanced differently, or appreciate it a little more deeper, or it becomes a little more clear. That helps us in our connecting to Torah and Hashem. So the fact that Moshe repeated it's not like watching a rerun, so to speak. But when you learn Torah a second time, the same words, they can have a different impact on you. You just see a little bit differently, hear it a little bit differently, or a little stronger, a little more clarity. It makes a huge difference. Okay.
Rabbi,
Yeah.
can I please ask you another question,
Yeah.
if you don't mind? Maurice and I were pondering about this thing that Moshe, when Yitro goes to Moshe with Moshe's wife and children, and he says to Moshe, ויאמר אל משה אני חותנך יתרו ואליך ואשתך. So Moshe didn't know that this was Yitro and his wife was his wife. Did you need that explanation? That's on page
Pasuk
394.
Vav. You mean Vayomer Moshe?
We were wondering why, I mean, obviously Moshe knew, but why is it that it is stated in this way?
So Rashi actually says, one second. So Rashi says, Ani chostach Yis. Rashi says, Im ein ata yotze begini, say begin ishtecha. Im ein ata yotze begin ishtecha, say begin shtei banel. Yis over here is he's just emphasizing that, listen, Yisro wants Moshe Rabbeinu to show some honor, some deference. He said, if you're not doing it for me, do it for your wife. Not for your wife. So he's emphasizing, I'm your father-in-law, right? And there's a relationship that you should have with your father-in-law. By the way, it's not clear if it's right or bottom, but a person has to have, just like you have a mitzvah of honor your parents, it extends to in-laws as well. And that's a tough one to do, but that's sometimes anyway, right? But honoring in-laws is part of Kavod Savicha on an extended level.
Right.
So Yisro is saying, I'm your father-in-law, and I have deference to me being your father-in-law, and if not for me, then at least do it for your children. So he's just trying to emphasize why Moshe should come out and make a big show of support for them. That's what he's really trying to do. But it's a good question. It's a very
There's
good
also,
question.
excuse me, Rabbi,
Yeah.
the use of the language, dovetailing to what he was saying, the Pasuk Gimel, page 394.
Yeah.
Usually when it says Shem Echad Gershon, then it says Shem Echad again instead of Shem Hasheni. Why both of them called the first one?
Yeah, it's a good question.
Why is now,
Yeah.
like, is it the first one and the first one again?
Yeah, they do talk about it. I haven't caught, but that's the question that's raised. Right, you say Shem Echad. I don't remember. I've seen something about that. I just don't remember now to think about it. Or just try to recall. But that's a good question. Why does it say Shem Echad? Say Shem Echad.
Because
Shem
they
Echad.
didn't take
There,
the
I'm a
same
freshman.
path.
I think I have to look it up. I'm a freshman.
Please,
I
go
just
ahead.
Is
don't
it
remember.
possible that
We can have a look at it.
they didn't take the same path in their lives?
Sorry? Maybe something like that. That each one
It's like
was
a
very
book.
unique in their path. It's certainly possible. By the way, it's interesting that. All right, let's do this. Let's go to the Sarah Dibris. All right. So let's start on page 406. It says, Dibros, Vaydabel Kim, Eskol Rama Eilema. And Hashem spoke all these words saying. So Rashi tells us, the very famous Rashi, Malame Chamakadosh Baruch Hu Aser Sivos B'Dibur Echad. Eskol Hadvar Ma'ela implies that first, HaKadosh Baruch Hu said the entire Torah in one word. It's not possible for a human being to even do that. I mean, I try to speak quickly as possible, but I'm not able to, right, say all the words in one word. Somehow, HaKadosh Baruch Hu was able to say all the words in one word, whatever that even means to us, right? So that's why he says, Kol Hadvar Ma'ela, and then if so, why is Anoch Liyelcha? So afterwards, he had to break it up into, then he broke it up, Anochi, Yilcha, and he broke them into deeper. What was Hashem trying to do when he said all the deepers in one deeper? It's an interesting thing. Mitzvos, the relation of mitzvahs have to one another. On the one hand, we understand that mitzvahs are independent of one another. If you're not keeping kosher, you still should keep Shabbos. Right? You're not keeping Shabbos, you still, right? They're independent, mitzvahs are independent of one another. Yet there's a certain interdependence of the mitzvahs as well. That there is some sort of spiritual connection. And we even say the words, and sometimes some people say, L'Shem Yichud, but Tariag mitzvah hatliyim ba, that all the mitzvahs are somehow connected to one another. Each mitzvah, it becomes a source for one thing, but then there's a connection, it permeates to all the other mitzvahs. Kind of maybe like the organs in our body where they function independently, but there's certainly an independence.
Synergistic.
Right, synergistic, right? So there's an independence, but there's also an interdependence. And by saying the entire Dibrus at one, Hashem was showing and demonstrating and perhaps even creating this idea that the mitzvahs are interconnected. It's one system. Sometimes we're very guilty of, we will say, I don't stand this mitzvah or this detail of this mitzvah. And we sometimes forget, mitzvahs are part of a system. And sometimes you need to appreciate the system first to really understand how this mitzvah fits into the system. When you pull it out by itself and try to understand it only by itself, without understanding how it really interlocks with the rest, sometimes you'll get a skewed view. You won't get the full picture of what it's all about. So when Hashem spoke the entire Torah in one sentence, in one word, he was really conveying that the mitzvahs are interconnected. And then when he broke them up, he's suggesting also that, listen, they still are also independent of one another, and if you're not doing one, it doesn't certainly excuse it from the other. Okay, that's as an introduction. We also know that the verse were mentioned, all the verses mentioned in the singular form. Anochi Hashem Elokecha Asher Tzitzicha Me'eretz Yisrael, right? It's written in the singular, not Ani Hashem Elokechem, plural, Asher Tzitzicha, but it's written in the plural form. And the reason for that is because the Kadosh Baruch Hu essentially knew his customers. He knew that the Jewish people, they say, okay, God, we accepted the Torah, but I didn't mean me. I was just speaking for everybody else here. I said, everybody here accepts the Torah, but you don't really need me to keep the Torah. As long as the Jewish people as a whole are keeping the Torah, I'm good. So, don't pin this on me. So Hashem says, I'm speaking to you, I'm speaking to each one of you as an individual. Each one of you, it's not just the Jewish people's responsibility as a whole, which it certainly is, but it also is an individual responsibility as well. And when you said, we'll accept the Torah, you can't say, well, I kind of meant we, the royal we. I didn't mean me, right? I didn't mean me personally, but I just meant all of us together. But Hashem's saying, no, I'm talking to each one of you individual as well. Okay, fine. But the Chazal also points something else out to us. The reason why it's written in singular form is because the Torah really was given to each Jew on their level. Each one of us appreciates Torah at a different level. Some appreciate depth, some appreciate breadth. Some people enjoy the gematria version of Torah, some people enjoy the philosophy version, some people enjoy the letter, right? And different parts of Torah speak to different people. And we say in Hadav, we ask God to give us our portion of Torah, because each one of us will contribute to the Torah in a way that nobody else can or will, because each one of us has a special relationship with Torah that nobody else has. It's unique. And because it's unique on different levels, therefore it says, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, when he presented the Torah to them at Matan Torah, he gave the Torah to each neshama on their level. However, it's interesting, by Kriyas Yamsuf, we don't find that at all, just the opposite. We find that even the person on the lowest level, Shivcha Shabiyam, the maid servant of the sea, was also privileged to see the revelation of splitting the sea as much as anybody else. Even the lowest maidservant had equal ability to appreciate Kriyas Yamsuf. And the idea is like this. When it comes to Torah study, so each one of us has a different approach, a different ability to connect based on our own aptitude. When it comes to dveikis or connecting to Hashem and emunah Hashem, all of us have the equal ability to connect to Hashem in an equal way. There's no distinction made. Everybody is able to relate to HaKadosh Baruch Hu equally in terms of emunah, in terms of dveikis. So even the Shvech Hashem was on par with everybody else. When it comes to Torah and the intellectual ability to connect to it, certainly each one has achelik. But in terms of connecting to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, directly, all of us have equal connection powers to Hashem, no one greater than the other. Okay, so let's now go through the Aseres Dibros a little bit. I'd like to, it goes without saying that the Aseres Dibros, first of all, they're more than actually there's more than 10 commandments in these. There's more than 10 mitzvahs in these 10 commandments. There's quite a few more than that. But certainly, we appreciate these 10 commandments are, let's call them core values. But in these core values lie deeper concepts that apply to every relevant situation and the other mitzvahs that are included as well. So I want to just kind of go through a couple of those. First of all, it's interesting. Anochi Hashem Elokecha, I'm Lord your Lord that took you out of Egypt, is not a commandment. It's a statement. Right? It's not a commandment, even though, right? Anochi Hashem Elokecha, there's no tzivah. It doesn't say, you should believe in me that took you out of Egypt. There's no commandment. It's a statement. Anochi Hashem Elokecha, I am the Lord your Lord. And some actually, therefore, say that Anochi Hashem Elokecha, or the mitzvah to believe in God, is not a mitzvah. That actually, it's not one of the 613 mitzvahs, because you can only perform a mitzvah once you believe there's a mitzvah. If you believe in a commander, then you can have a mitzvah. So Anochi Hashem is not a mitzvah; it's a mitzvah. It's introducing the mitzvah. It's not a mitzvah itself. That's how some understand it. But either way, it's mentioned as a statement form, and it was mentioned by HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself directly. And whereas the rest of the Dibros, we know Moshe Rabbeinu took over because the Jews said we can't handle listening to this. But that's why it left an indelible mark in every Jewish Neshama to believe in Hashem, because the Jews at Sinai heard it themselves. And that's why we say there's always something that, no matter how far away a Jew is from Yiddishkeit, somewhere along the way, he can make his way back. I heard a really disturbing story. Just like there was. I just heard it literally a couple of days ago. There was a great rabbi told me that somebody came to him and told him that he wanted to become more observant. He was born Jewish, but he converted to Christianity for many years, and now he realizes that he's barking up the wrong tree, and he wants to learn more about Judaism. So the rabbi asked him, "Okay, that's fine, that's great. But why did you convert to Christianity?" So this is what the guy said. He said, "Well, when I went to college, I just realized I had to search for meaning in life, and I knew meaning in life would include a relationship with God, but I knew that Jews don't believe in God, so I had to turn to Christianity." That's what he said, with a straight face. I knew in his circle of friends, Jews didn't believe in God, so he had to go to Christianity. But the truth of the matter is, even such a person raised, and that's the Chazon Ish refers to Tinnik Shenish Ben Yehudim, that you can be raised amongst Jews and be clueless that there's a God. That's called a Tinnik Shenishba Ben Yehudim. Sadly enough, you'll be a Jew raised amongst Jews and not know anything. But at the end of the day, every Jew has the ability to reconnect, because every soul heard at Sinai, Anochi Hashem Elokecha, and that being that was said by God Himself left this indelible imprint on each one of our souls. So Anochi Hashem Elokecha, Asher Metzayim Beis Avodim. I want to mention. I'll take a question in 1 second. We know that the 10 Commandments also run across the first and the sixth, the second and seventh. I was familiar with that idea. So I want to share with you I'm not saying anything that you don't know. I'm just saying it again because I think we say it the second time maybe it comes out a little better or a little deeper. The connection between Anochi Hashem and the sixth commandment, what's the sixth commandment?
Murder.
Do not murder. What's the connection?
You're connecting people, His creation, with Hashem. I mean, you can't destroy His creation.
We humans are made in the image of Hashem. If we murder a human, we're murdering the image of Hashem.
Right. So I want to say exactly right, but just say it a little bit differently, the exact same thing, 100% right. It's not just murdering the image of Hashem. Every person was given a unique role to bring Hashem's presence in this world through their own way. Each person has the ability to bring godliness in the world in a way that nobody else can. If you kill that person, you've killed that opportunity of that kind of godliness. So when we say killing someone, what does that mean? What you're saying is you're robbing the world of that godliness that this person could have and should have brought into the world. That's what's really going on over here. It's interesting, by the way. If you take a look, it's kind of what's called a Hasidic remez, but it's so I think it's so pretty. When Cain killed Hevel, right? So Hashem comes knocking and says, "Excuse me, what's going on over here?" Right? So we could just find it inside a second. Here we go. Page.
Ayika.
Hold on. Yeah, take a look at page 20. Page 20, Pasuk Tes. It's the last two words on the line, the end of the line. Vayomer Hashem el Kayin. And Hashem said to Cain, Ey Hevel Achicha. Where's Hevel, your brother? Vayomer lo yadati. So I don't know. Hashomer Achin my brother's keeper? Right? Famous words. Look at the words again. Hashomer Achi Anoichi. What he's really saying is, I didn't know that my brother is the Shomer. He's the guardian of Anochi. Anochi Hashem Alakecha. I did not know that in my brother there was an Anochi Hashem Alakecha. I didn't know that when I'm killing my brother, I'm killing the Anochi that my brother has and he's protecting. Follow? Hashomer Achi Anochi. I didn't realize the gravity of my sin. I didn't realize what I was doing. I was killing the Anochi that my brother was protecting, that he had inside of himself. And every person has an Anochi inside of himself, and my brother had the ability to protect and bring out the Anochi Hashem that he could, and I killed that Anochi. But I didn't know. I didn't realize that I was the shamer of my brother's Anochi. That my brother was the shamer of Anochi as well. Okay, fine. Let's go. So Anochi Hashem Lakecha. I am the Hashem that took you out of Egypt. All right. Some say the reason why there's no mitzvah of emunah, it's in statement form, is because the mitzvah of emunah is nonsensical.